So, fittingly, we are at the end of the exhibition here, but if there's, I'm happy to, I'm here all day, so if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
When talking about the family, it seemed in reading stuff that her mother was pretty negative about her work.
Her mother was, as we say, a piece of work, I think. I don't know that she was so negative. I think it was her way. This is the positive spin on it. Okay. I think it was her way.
Back there,
oh, well, we can have these conversations in person. The question was asked, or the comment was made that her mother was very discouraging of her work, or made a lot of negative comments. And I think that while she was indeed a problematic person, I think it was her way of encouraging her, because she was hard on herself. And I think that's, you know, people who do that are hard on everybody else, and they think they're justified because they're hard on themselves. And that she, you know, she didn't realize how sensitive, I think, her daughter was, and that these remarks really fell, you know, on very soft soil and really damaged her in some ways. And I think that she just thought she was saying, well, look, you know, you've got this great talent, now do something. Get on with it and be serious about it and devote yourself to it, because this is what you should be doing, and not everybody is given this. And of course she was right, but, you know, that wasn't the best way, probably, to treat this particular person.
Do you suppose that was kind of the period of time when her mother maybe was raised with even more strictness than what she was, and you just kind of revert?
I think that's possible, but I think in every day and age, you know, there are kind parents and there are mean parents. And I think she was sort of mean. And, you know, her father never treated her like that, and he criticized her much more specifically. I mean, she would ask for criticism of her work, and he would say, well, you know, you just didn't get the shadow here, and you need to do this other thing. And, you know, but she loved him. He did it in a way that was more acceptable, I guess.
Yeah.
She could hear it, and whereas her mother just sounded as if she were, you know, disdainful and, you know. Yes.
My question is, there's such a variety of styles and subject matter, etc. Why do you feel compelled to put the label of Impressionist on it? Why not just an American painter?
Well, I'll tell you there are two answers to that. One is the commercial one, which is that people are going to, one of our goals with this was to get people to pay attention to this work and this artist. And one way to do that is to put the word Impressionism in there. People, you know, I mean, it's crass and it sounds horrible, but you know, obviously I wouldn't have done it if there weren't some justification for it. And I do think, from what I said, you know, earlier, that her preferred style was this, you know, more loosely brushed. I mean, if you look, if you went around and counted, I think you would find that most of the works have these sort of very visible brush strokes, are very concerned with light and shadow, and these and are out of doors. And those are the elements, I think, some of the elements that go into making something an Impressionist work. So it was somewhat convenient, somewhat commercial, and somewhat justified by the work.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry. As a student of art and art history, why do you feel, or do you feel, that most artists are underappreciated when they're alive, and then all of a sudden they become, you know, after they die, it seems like there's an appreciation that wasn't there while they were alive? So, just kind of, are they ahead of it a bit, or just?
Well, I certainly think that's an excellent question. If I had the answer, I'd probably not be here talking to you now. But I think that I'd be writing about all this and pontificating elsewhere. But I think that there are, of course, the reasons are probably as varied as the artists. I think it has to do with the circumstances of their lives. Again, some are more, you know, out in the world, know more people, are introduced to people. I think a lot of it is serendipitous, that somebody sees their work, takes it up, champions it, either an academic or a dealer. And then, of course, fashions change. As you said, some people are, quote, ahead of their time, unquote.
being a woman here.
And being a woman had a lot to do
Well,
with
did
it.
she seek commercial success? Was it
Well, she did until she married, and then she stopped. And I think that was unfortunate because that was when she moved back to New York, which of course would have been the hub, certainly for American art then, as in many ways it is now. That is the hub, the place, the center of the art world, the art market in any case. And she, you know, it was at that point that she just slacked off promoting it. She, you know, as I say, continued to paint.
Part of it, I'm married to an artist, and I
Oh,
know,
oh.
until he was discovered by someone, I mean, he's an amazing artist, but until he was actually discovered by someone, he was just nothing. And then suddenly he just went into the international arena, being known everywhere.
Congratulations.
Well, yeah,
But it is-
it was a long time ago. He's 61 now. But unless you're a self-promoter,
Yeah.
unless you can really promote yourself, because I do know quite a number of contemporary artists that do promote themselves. But unless you have someone that discovers you and really pushes it and knows the commercial end of it, I think it's a very difficult field, very challenging.
And you look
in
at
a volatile
somebody
world.
like Jean-Michel Basquiat, right, who became, you know, this overnight success during his lifetime. He went to clubs in New York and, you know, hung out with people who could talk up his art, who could buy it, and you know, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was dubious, but.
I think also when you have someone else that is promoting your art rather than you promoting it or your spouse, it gives you more clout.
Of course.
Suddenly you have someone else that's out there pushing it.
Exactly.
that
And
makes
she
a
was
huge
somewhat in the
difference.
shadow for a long time when she was young, of course. She was in the shadow of her father's work, which was much better known. You know, people would sort of let her have some paintings in some of his shows. And then also, you know, at that time, women did not, there were not solo shows for women. It was very, very rare. I'm trying to think of the name, Cecilia Beau had solo shows, but she was very unusual. And again, she devoted her life to her art, and she had proteges, young men often, who, you know, she taught or helped to get their art out in the world. And so they returned the favor, and, you know, it's that kind of thing that needs to go on.
Or if you signed someone else's name, if this said Mary Cassatt next to it.
Yes.
It would be worth a lot more.
Could you speak to her sketches of her mother's book and the story behind that?
Oh, yes. Her mother, again, in an attempt to educate and entertain her children, came up with her own version of the Alice in Wonderland book. She wrote the story, and the book is going to be, it's going to be in this display somewhere, called A New Alice in Old Wonderland. It did not deviate very far, I think, from the original. And the illustrations are a direct, you know, rip-off of Tennille. But on the other hand, in preparation for the show, I looked at Tennille's Alice illustrations, and I have to say, I think that these are much more lively, have a lot of personality. They, you know, she was young. She did many of them when she was still a young girl living at home. And then she completed it later in her 20s when the book was being published. So that was
The detail work in it is amazing.
I know. I think she enjoyed it. I mean, this was still in the period when she was painting that way, too.
When I was looking at it, I was wondering if she ever erased.
I don't know. I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did because she was very, you know, she was very self-critical. I mean, her mother's criticism of her, of course, hit home, and she was very self-critical. And I can't imagine that she would just dash those off without a lot of work.
Actually, I'm really quite taken with a lot of her letters and the correspondence. Is there a collection of her correspondence just like outside of the catalog?
It's at the Schlesinger Library in Boston, and they're under Annie Ware Windsor Allen. That's the name. And you know, after a while, if you get used to reading her handwriting, they're actually pretty legible.
Oh, right. Because there's just something. I mean, her own like awareness of being, I mean, even just her roles as a woman outside
Exactly.
of an artist are just very articulate and lovely and just really, I don't know.
Thank you. So it isn't just me. No, I agree, obviously, and that was one of the things that really